Click share my screen.
Is it rolling? Hello and good morning and welcome to Propertymark's live webinar on referral fees, and in particular looking at the latest guidance on transparency of fees involving property sales. My name is Timothy Douglas. I am the Senior Policy and Campaigns Officer at Propertymark. Alongside me is Mark Hayward, our Chief Executive of NAEA Propertymark. Good morning, Mark.
Good morning, Tim, and good morning to nearly 1,000 people, I think, have now signed up to this webinar. So welcome to you all.
Fantastic. Just some housekeeping before we begin. The webinar is being recorded and will be available afterwards. And we're beginning to have more and more questions coming in, so please lodge them on the right-hand side of your screen. I think we're going to take them at the end of the webinar. So Mark, let's talk all things transparency. Hot topic at the moment, referral fees, but what exactly are they?
You're completely right, Tim. It is a hot topic and it's something that really needs to be adhered to if you're going to avoid, and that's you, the sector, avoid the worst, which would be a banning on referral fees. A referral fee is simply a fee that an agent would get for referring services to a purchaser or a seller. These could be a legal fee, this could be financial services, could even be a fee on, for instance, an EPC. So it is quite simple, but it does need to be absolutely transparent, as Tim has just said, to the consumer.
And referring business to another person could be simply providing information?
Providing information, providing personal data in terms of the identity of that individual, or steering that individual down a particular course or to a particular provider.
Okay. And in terms of references to payment, of course, this can include money, but...
Well, certainly the research that National Trading Standards has carried out, which has been lengthy and comprehensive, shows it isn't just necessarily financial. It could be simply a crate of wine at Christmas. It could be the use of a holiday home for a period of time, and in one instance, a contribution to an agent's school fees. That's not their school fees, the school fees for their child.
Okay, so essentially we're looking at, you know, a physical transaction of money, but it could be a retainer or something else in the form of a gift giving,
yeah,
essentially. Okay, fantastic. And in terms of some examples of referrals, could that be, it would likely to be a conveyancer?
Yeah,
removal company?
Could be a conveyancer, and we've got some pretty compelling evidence in terms of the level of referral fees. Could be a removal firm, it could be a firm that provides, and again we've got evidence, floor plans, produces an EPC, or carries out professional photography.
Fantastic. And in terms of the guidance, and obviously the definition of an estate agent is what any estate agency work as defined in the Estate Agency Act?
Correct. And you need to refer to the 1979 Estate Agents Act, but any prosecutions resulting on contraventions of the guidance will be under the Consumer Protection for Unfair Trading Regulations, which is criminal legislation, which carries an unlimited fine and or a prison sentence.
Okay, fantastic. Well, I think we're going to look at how the guidance interacts with the Consumer Protection Regulations a bit later on, and some of the penalties. But in terms of referral fees, why are they on the government's agenda?
Over 18 months ago, the government called for evidence into the house buying and selling process. This resulted in some, I suppose, some surprising engagement from consumers. They considered the house buying and selling process to be, in their words, broken. And last April, the Secretary of State, Sajid Javid at the time, announced that he would be regulating both sales and letting agents. There were a number of items that had been highlighted by consumers that they were concerned about. Partly it was the speed and complexity of the transaction, but one of the other issues raised was the question of referral fees. Now, when the government's looking at anything in terms of the consumer, everything has to follow three things. It has to be fair, transparent, and it has to be in the consumer's best interest. So in terms of referral fees, and again, the level of, I suppose, business was perhaps exposed by the research that we carried out into leasehold last year, where over 1,000 people who'd bought a leasehold property within the last 10 years were interviewed, and that showed that 63% of all those that had bought a leasehold home had used the services, the legal services of the recommended legal services by the developer, which really heightened awareness that this is quite a large amount of money that has not yet been disclosed. And again, the government has decided to ask National Trading Standards to police this, but also to make sure that the consumer has a choice and they can choose whether they wish to go down a referred service or whether they wish to go to another or seek to get a competitive quote from the same service provider.
Okay, fantastic, Mark. So I think that brings us nicely on to the latest guidance issued by the National Trading Standards Estate Agency team in February. And essentially, what does that say agents should be doing?
This was issued on the 28th of February. This was issued under the direction of the Housing Minister, and it sets out very simply, it's not a long document, you can download it from our website or from National Trading Standards website, stating what you need to do in terms of informing the consumer. And you need to do this in a timely manner. There's no point in telling them after they've taken the services that you will be receiving referral fees. It has to be in advance of the consumer making a decision, and this needs to be in your terms of business and will need to be on your sales particulars. Therefore, it's viewed by the consumer when they go onto a portal and click through to full particulars. That there is the issue of referral fees. The agent will be making an indication to you as to where you should go, necessarily for conveyancing or for financial advice, and the fee that the agent will receive for making that referral.
And that's irrespective of they are a buyer or seller? Absolutely.
They're both consumers. Referred services will go both to sellers, as you say, and to the purchaser. So they need to be informed so that they can make, and as you know from the consumer protection regulations, an informed decision, a transactional decision, and they need to be able to consider that in light of the information that's been provided to them.
Fantastic, Mark, thank you. So there's three things that really you're saying the status of the connected service provider must be made explicit. Correct. To the buyer and the seller. The timing of that information is important.
In advance of them being presented with that choice.
And it must also be made clear to consumers that they can choose to source the service from another provider.
Correct. And there's also another issue that needs to be raised, which is the pay to exit. So in some instances, when there is a fixed fee, the fixed fee is based on the agent I suppose receiving a referral fee. If they don't receive that referral fee, in some instances, the fee to the consumer will go up. So it's called pay to exit. So again, that needs to be highlighted explicitly that there will be that payment should they not wish to take the referred service.
Okay, thank you, Mark. And you touched on there the measures and the ways agents should be disclosing this information. It's got to be in writing?
It's got to be in writing so you can prove, if challenged, that you have made that statement, and the consumer will have been able to see it. When we say it's in writing, it can't be buried in the small print or clause 54 of your terms of business. It needs to be, and the term is bold, compelling and specific, so that the consumer will have no doubt at all, because they'll be able to see it in this manner and make a decision thereafter.
Okay, fantastic. So essentially there you're saying disclosure should be made in writing to the sellers. That could be in the standard terms and conditions.
Yeah, it's recommended in your terms of business that you put the referral fees that you may receive on referred services immediately below the commission that you'll be charging.
And then to the buyers in the property particulars.
The buyers on the property particulars. And when you refer to the fee, you cannot just say we will receive a fee. If it's a finite amount, you need to put it in pounds and pence, not a percentage. And if you're unable to be precise, it has to be an average of the level of fees that you have historically received.
And if it is made verbally, it's got to be backed up in writing?
I would say it has got to be backed up in writing. There is the term contemporaneous note, so you could make a note on the file if it's your software where it can't be deleted. But I would suggest that it's far better to put it on the sales particulars, therefore it's on the portal, and also on your terms of business.
And I think the guidance does have an example pro forma.
There is a pro forma at the back of the guidance, and we will have some worked examples that we'll be able to let members have very, very shortly.
Okay, fantastic. So you touched on it also at the start, Mark. In terms of the consumer protection regulations, how does the guidance and the rules interact with those regulations?
Well, as I said before, it's anything that would affect someone's transactional decision, something that's material. It is considered, and National Trading Standards has taken considerable legal advice on this, so that I need to be, as a consumer, fully informed. I need to be able to make that transactional decision in the full knowledge of anything that might affect in terms of my decision-making process.
Okay, fantastic. And in terms of penalties for failing to disclose referral arrangements?
The penalties can be severe. It could be a fine, it could be an unlimited fine. In the worst cases, it could in fact be a criminal sentence, because this is criminal legislation. It's not civil legislation, it's criminal legislation.
Okay. And in terms of, before we take some questions, ourselves, the NAEA Propertymark, what resources are we providing to continue to support members and agents out there?
We will have a series of webinars such as this. This is available and is recorded. We have the head of National Trading Standards speaking at many of our conferences. It will be highlighted in our local workshops and masterclasses. As I say, the guidance is there from National Trading Standards. We are there and here to ask any questions that are required. Now, I think I have to caveat this with a warning. The Housing Minister has been absolutely clear in saying that the sector has 12 months to get its act together. If it cannot demonstrate that it can be transparent, the next step will be seek to ban fees. We've already seen what's happened on tenants' fees. If we cannot, as a sector, be transparent, this will happen. You can't wait for 11 months because there's only 12 months for us to comply. There will be checks almost immediately. We know some of the larger agencies have already changed their terms of business, and within 3 months we will start to get a very clear indication of whether people are adhering to this guidance. It's quite simple for National Trading Standards to check in a way. A lot of it can be done online, and the head of National Trading Standards, if you see his presentation, is very keen to ask you to whistleblow, because I know some people have already spoken to me. Well, we're the good actors here, we're going to comply, we're going to adhere to the guidance, others will not. If you know of others that are not, refer them to National Trading Standards, and they will seek to examine and, if necessary, prosecute those that are flaunting this guidance. So, as a sector, we're on countdown. We can't wait we have to be seen to be absolutely clear and precise.
And I think that's also the case for consumers. I think consumers are also being encouraged to call out bad practice and refer to citizens' advice, or of course they may refer themselves to national training standards as well. So we've heard the warning.
Yeah, and it is. I've spoken to the housing minister just a few days ago, and she was absolutely adamant that there is no patience on this. It needs to be done, and us as a sector need to comply, because if we don't, we will lose a valuable part of our income and our business model. So they're not being banned. It is just they have to be transparent, and the consumer needs to be able to make a transactional decision as to whether or not they wish to take up these services. Again, you need to inform them in a timely manner.
Okay, fantastic. Well, thank you very much, Mark, for that information. We're coming up to the halfway point, or just over the halfway point, and questions have come in. So I suggest we tackle those
questions.
And I think the first question from Oliver was, I think we've answered that. When does the guidance take effect from? Essentially
28th of February, and you have 12 months.
Okay. And a more specific question relating to, I suppose, some of the examples we were looking at the start from Charlotte. Could this be a commission for referring an insurance policy? So could a referral fee be something in that scenario?
If you receive a fee for referring a consumer to a service, that is a referral fee and will need to be disclosed.
Okay.
Simple as that.
Thank you very much. And this is something that's come up, and I know other members and agents have asked me, and I suppose it goes back to the timing issue. The question we've had in from Debbie is, why are we being told to advertise referral fees on property details when we do not offer a referral to a potential buyer at that point?
Because they need to be informed, as I said, and the term is in a timely manner. So they need to be informed that they may be offered or may be directed towards certain services, and they need to be aware before that even happens that there is a referral fee, and that referral fee will be paid to the agent.
Okay, thank you. And another issue that is coming up more frequently, and I think relates to other legislation affecting property agents, particularly in the letting side of the business, of the sector, and the impending Tenant Fees Act from the 1st of June. Questions come in from Adam, who said, would commission earned as part of the letting process, i.e. utility company referrals, Sky, Virgin referrals, and commission earned from contractors for work sent by us on behalf of a landlord? Would that fall into this bracket?
At the moment, national trading standards are responsible for sales operations throughout the UK. In terms of lettings, there will be a new lead local authority appointed to look at that, but as some of you may know, that the legislation over lettings is different in the devolved countries. Scotland, it's different to England, and in it's different in Wales. Soon to be different in Wales. So I would say, yes, you do need to be, it's all about being transparent. And the government is set itself a course to sort out the housing sector, whether it's in sales or whether it's in lettings.
Okay, thank you. I think on that point, certainly on the lettings side of things, we are, although we've had royal assent on the Tenant Fees Act, we are waiting guidance, official guidance from the government, which is imminent. So I think, as Mark has alluded to there, all referrals and work will need to be transparent. I think if it is mandated as subject as part of a contract, part of a tenancy, then I think that's likely to be, that's not going to be allowed. The consumer must be given that choice.
Yes. Sorry, we're just scrolling through. There's a multitude of questions here, so we'll try and pick out the most commonly asked one.
So, an interesting question here from James, and he said, when you say we must publish the amount of referral fee, this can vary depending on the sale value of the property. Can we publish an average or provide a range?
I would suggest rather than a range, an average. Presumably, if you've been receiving these referral fees over a period of time, that shouldn't be too difficult to calculate. But if it's a range, I think that might be somewhat misleading. So an average, if it's not a precise figure, will suffice.
And a question from Kieran, who has asked, apologies, we've lost Kieran's question. Here we go. If you offer a referral service but do not receive a fee in exchange for this, do you still need to state this, or can you simply not include the referral in your breakdown?
If you're not receiving a fee, I don't believe you need to disclose that you're making a referral, but actually there's no money to be made out of it.
Okay.
But you need to tell the truth.
Okay, thank you. And Oliver has asked, the CPRs require the disclosures to be made before the consumer enters into the contract. With this in mind, there are other options to inclusion in the terms of business sales particulars. So that's a question on the timing, I assume.
Again, we go back to a timely manner, so therefore right at the beginning when they're starting to look, if it's a consumer looking to purchase, when they're starting to look, it needs to be highlighted then, and again it needs to be highlighted in terms of business so that the consumer will sign those terms of business with full knowledge, not only of the fee that the agent will charge, but the referral fee that the agent will receive at some point down the line.
So Hannah there has asked, can we point a consumer to a list of referral fees on our website rather than list them on the terms and the property particulars?
Technically you can, but I go back to the fact that it needs to be compelling, it needs to be bold, it needs to be engaging so that they see it and that they don't have to click through to another button. As we know, consumers buy with their heart, not necessarily with their head, so they get wound up in the whole process. So again, it needs to be there at the very beginning, so before they even start to fall in love with the property, they know that the level of fees that the agent will get if he makes a referral to them.
Okay, thank you. And Malcolm has sort of added to that. It is clear that some online firms are charging portal features such as a premium listing at a higher charge to clients. Malcolm says, I assume they will need to be clear about the marketing charges.
You need to be clear anyway about the marketing charges. If it's a premium fee, again, that will be or should be explained, but it's not necessarily a referral fee as such, but anything like that needs to be highlighted.
Okay, and Emma asked, what is the position on fees where an agent and auctioneer split the fee paid by the client?
Again, this needs to be completely transparent. I know that there has been some discussions regarding this. The fee that is being split needs to be explained to the consumer, and I know in some of the instances here that it is not necessarily the seller that is paying the fee, but it is the purchaser, and again they need to be made aware that they are paying that fee, the conditions under which they are paying the fee, and again the consumer who's selling the property needs to know that that fee may well be being split between two agents, one of which might be an auctioneer, and again, as long as it's transparent, as long as it's upfront, that will be fine, that will suffice.
Okay, thank you. And Tony asks another specific example, do referral fees apply to the markup on EPCs? Do we have to disclose what the EPC companies charge in for sales?
Sorry, Tim. The research that's being done shows that the greatest percentage markup in terms of the greatest amount in percentage terms that the agent receives is on EPCs. We've seen evidence where an EPC that costs £37 is being charged out at in excess of £200 and a very significant referral fee back to the agent. So there has been research done. Worst practices are evident out there, and they will be looked on in a very poor light by national trading standards if they continue. And it needs to be proportional as well. The consumer needs to know that if they're paying, for instance, for a £700 conveyancing fee, so they think they're getting £700 worth of value from the conveyancer, where it actually transpires that the conveyancer is only receiving £300 and the agent referring is receiving £400. So again, the consumer's actually only getting a £300 service, even though he perceives he's getting a £700 service. So again, that needs to be again highlighted, and their attention needs to be drawn to that proportionality.
And just going into a bit more detail, Anton has asked quite, I think, a good question. He said, do you need to disclose the fees for all potential providers? If we provide pricing for 10 conveyancers, do we have to name all 10 or provide a generic we will receive?
I think it would be easier for you to say in generic term that we will receive a fee from our panel of conveyancers to whom we refer.
Okay, that's clear. Thank you, Mark. And Jonathan has said, can you please clarify about receiving gifts? Many solicitors send a hamper, case of wine at Christmas to say thank you for recommendations. No contract or arrangement, but common practice in the industry.
Well, there is a thing called the gift register, which most firms should actually have to state that they receive a gift. It depends again on the proportional of that gift, but technically, yes, you should say that we're in receipt of gifts, even though they're quite small, from a conveyancer.
And on a similar vein, how do you declare a portion of mortgage commission, which varies dramatically by customer?
Again, you need to look at the average that you will be receiving. The mortgage industry is very good because, as you know, when a mortgage offer, or before a mortgage offer even goes out before the financial advisor is confirmed, that they will inform you of the fee that they will receive from the lender on that. But again, yes, you need to comply.
Okay, thank you, Mark. And Murray's asked, we receive a credit on our account for giving our reference provider instructions to carry out checks. Does this come under the new regs?
Depends the value of that credit and how that is received, and if that can be converted into a monetary sum, or is it just a credit discount? So again, you need to be careful.
And an interesting one from James has said, can we assume that everyone will read our sales particulars prior to making an inquiry?
You can't assume that they will, but you can't assume that they will not. If it's there, and again, as I keep saying, it needs to be compelling, it needs to be specific, that they don't have to click and click and click through. It needs to be there, so you can't assume they're going to read the sales particulars, but if they click through the sales particulars, it's there.
Okay, and I think just going back, I had a similar question on this from Dominic. I referred numerous partners for numerous services. Where do I write everything down to disclose to the customer?
Well, you've obviously got a very good business if you've got all these numerous referrals through. Again, you need to be transparent. If you've got a schedule, you can attach that to your sales particulars. I know it sounds cumbersome, but we're here to try and make it work rather than try and work around. National Trading Standards has been looking after us for some time. They know that our sector is creative, and in terms of government, the least wriggle room, the better.
And Marcus asked, would you suggest something in the email footer?
It's a bit like who's been on Google page 2. I don't think people go to Google page 2. I don't think people read the footer. Again, it needs to be there, bold and compelling.
Okay, and finally, just to confirm, I assume we cannot offer referrals to anyone over the phone.
You need to document all of this, and again, it needs to be able to be seen by a consumer easily.
And I think there's a theme that's coming through, just to close, we come to the end. These are not new rules or regulations. The guidance is clarifying existing practice out there, and it's the government who are now taking a keen eye on it, and therefore the 12 months clock is ticking.
Absolutely, and we need to take action, and take action now, because the consequences of not taking action are not great.
Okay, fantastic. Well, we've reached the close of our time, our 30 minutes. We thank everyone for watching and taking part today. There's been lots of questions, and if other people want to question in, we will do our best to come back to you. But otherwise, thank you very much.
Thank you.